Welcome to Over the Shoulder with Superintendent Killingbeck. I'm joined here with Superintendent Jeff Collier. Jeff, we go back a ways.
We do.
And so I've known you for several years. But our audience, our greater Hemlock community, our school community, they don't necessarily know who you are. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Jeffrey Collier. I'm the superintendent of Saginaw ISD. I assumed this role on July 1. Prior to that, I'll work a little bit backwards in my chronology. Prior to that, I spent 8 years as a superintendent at Paul-Grey-Sims School District in Aranet County. And then prior to that, 2 years as high school principal in Tawas area schools. That was in Iosco County. Working backward in that timeline, I was an assistant principal for 2 years in Bay City Public Schools at Handy Middle School. At that time, it was the largest middle school in the state of Michigan. It was a fantastic experience of urban education. And prior to that, I was in Essexville, Hampton for 9 years as a classroom teacher. And my first position, working all the way back in this chronology, was at an alternative high school as a social studies teacher. So it's been a wonderfully blessed experience of having worked in Bay, Aranet, Iosco, and now Saginaw County. And as you say, all the relationships that we've been able to make as educators have really come full circle in a lot of ways. It's just a pleasure and a blessing to be here.
You definitely have a wide variety of experiences, from alternative ed to middle school, high school teacher, to assistant principal to superintendent, now at the ISD. Tell us a little bit about your role that you currently are in, and how does it impact, for example, like Hemlock Public School District?
Well, I appreciate that framing. I've had a mentor in my life that challenged me all the time. If jobs were presented, to always choose a job for the right reasons, not the wrong ones. And I have always been blessed to say that my next job is always my next best job. So as we walk through these pieces, I've never really thought that I would move from one district to another. It was not a goal, it was not a career arc, that corporate ladder type of piece. It was always just a new opportunity had presented, and perhaps between decisions that my wife and I had made together, we thought that it was a new evolution, a new opportunity for leadership, and that's always what it's been about. How do we impact as many kids and community members as possible? So that experience has really lent itself, I think, to an opportunity to have understood working in an alternative charter, working in an impoverished rural Class D school district, working in a relatively rural Class C school district as a county seat, working in a suburban Class B and then an urban Class A school district, has provided a lot of experiences throughout the Great Lakes Bay region to be able to hopefully have a semblance of an idea of how processes work and maybe a framework of systems to be able to help best be a servant leader here in Saginaw County. So how I hope that relates to the constituency here in the greater Hemlock area and Saginaw County and beyond is an opportunity to be a good communicator, a listener, a facilitator of ideas. Our vision and mission at Saginaw ISD is to serve, innovate, and empower, and that is really the genesis of everything that I hope we can do together in partnership, is be servant leaders for our students, our staff, and our communities.
So one of the things I heard you say, Jeff, is that education is kind of a family business. This is something that I don't know if the audience quite caught that, but you mentioned, like, hey, between you and your wife, talking about how can we make the biggest impact. So who is your wife? What does she do? What's her name?
Well,
Tell us a little bit about that.
My wife's going straight to heaven. There's no question about that. And she has taken on the role, and she has turned down administrative positions. So before I get too far into that, my wife is a K-12 Spanish teacher. Her name is Yolanda Collier. She has, for the majority of her career, worked at Midland Public Schools here in the area. She has experience working in Flint Community Schools as well. She speaks completely immersive Spanish to her students from kindergarten up to 5th. We're a bilingual family in our household as well. It's a wonderful mix of culture. And Yolanda has had these opportunities in her career as a stellar academic and a servant leader in education to have chosen opportunities. She's actually chosen to decline opportunities of leadership and have really supported the roles that I've taken, as far as even moving to Aranet County, where she had an hour commute one way, to be able to move back and forth, because we thought that was what was best not only for our family, but what was best for the communities communities that we're serving. But those decisions that we make together are definitely, I guess, within the family business, and it works really well to continue to have the juxtaposition of administrative leadership decisions and classroom experience. And I think we crash those ideologies against each other a lot to seek out best practices.
So, Jeff, tell us a little bit about what you're really passionate about. I mean, I can hear enthusiasm in your voice, but what are some things that you're just really, this is like why you wake up in the morning and go to work?
I love education. I love education. I'm a junkie for education. I can talk education all day long. I love theory. I love the practice of education. And this sounds really sappy. I love being a servant leader. And I know that is really an undefined description. It's a nickel and dime term we can throw out there. I really love being able to provide the best facilitated resources for our babies, regardless of zip code, regardless of birthplace, regardless of who they are, regardless of mascots or colors or histories. I really believe in education being the universal tide that lifts everybody. And what I'm super passionate about, why I believe that the fit for me in the Saginaw ISD is so important, is I'm really, really passionate about equity and opportunities for our students. I always say our babies, because even at home, my son and daughter will say, Dad, can you stop calling me a baby? It's not that. It's whether we're 26-year-old or 80-year-old babies. That's what we are as we continue to move forward and grow and evolve. And I'm passionate about early childhood. I'm passionate about special education. I'm passionate about STEM education and opportunities. I'm passionate about innovation and being always able to question what if and why not for the betterment of all kids. I want to celebrate courageously bold leadership. I want people to think outside of that proverbial box. And when I say, let's challenge what if and why not. If this has always worked, why does it continue to work? And let's replicate it. If we think it could be better, let's do it. And when people say, well, what if we get it wrong? I say, fail. Please fail. Let's fail for the betterment of an opportunity to improve and move from good to great. And have those attention to detail moments where it's okay to, as tech companies will say, fail is the first attempt in learning, or fail first, fail fast, and fail forward. But let's not remain stagnant. And that's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about the opportunity to get our hands dirty for the betterment of our babies throughout the region.
So it's kind of like that Thomas Edison saying, I didn't, fail 700 times. It took that many attempts to get it right,
Absolutely.
get the light bulb. So Jeff, what do you see as you're new in your role here at Saginaw ISD? What are the next steps? I mean, we're leading during a pandemic. We've got most of our schools in the county, if not almost all of them, are shut down to face-to-face instruction with everybody remote learning. I think that we're in a unique spot here in Hemlock. What are your next steps as a leader? What are you doing? You're ending your 100th day of leadership at the ISD. What do you kind of see as on the horizon?
Well, Dr. Killingbeck, as you know, the word that I use a lot is this is imperfect. It's not what we had designed. It's not what we've created, but it's something we have to lead regardless. And those are challenges every day. We know, our community may not know, but we know that things are happening so lightning quick that we're being more reactionary than we are being proactive or visionary. So there has been this really weird time right now, at least in my career, and I'll speak through my perspective, of wanting to be able to plan forward innovation and at the same time ensuring all of the safeguards for health, community awareness, social emotional opportunities for our students and our community members. So it's not that we're not moving forward, because I think we are at breakneck speed, but sometimes it may not be within that packaged box of what our personal vision may be. That said, I think that this global pandemic, and this may be a challenging aspect for some people, I think that this has catapulted us years ahead of where education perhaps needed to go. Again, imperfect, but the opportunity to have a myriad of solutions and choices for students as we continue to move forward. I would have loved to have had more time for us as a nation to be able to have practiced online learning, virtual learning to ensure that we had the professional development, the resources, and all those things. So we've been catapulted against our will, but I think that that sanding against the grain is good divergency for us. And I think it's an opportunity for us to continue to improve and get better. But I have a lot of ideas for what we can do, and I'm willing to challenge all of us to be able to risk that notion of failing, to be able to build new programs and challenge what if and what not.
One of the things you mentioned ideas, and Jeff, I know that you're never short on ideas. In fact, is we're standing here at our updated media center. This is one of the things that we actually, the reason why we're doing this interview here is because we visited your school up in Eau Gray and seen something very similar and modeled, our library here after some of the things you were doing there, where it was more focused on gathering space, digital media. We have presentation tools and stuff. So it kind of, we know that you're not short of ideas. So very exciting. We're being catapulted. One of the things I think about interesting about this coffee bar that we're standing at is I liken education to the coffee movement. And I think about how when we were kids, and I'm gonna date our age, the show on TV would have been Alice's Diner. I think it might have been Mel's Diner, and people would go in and get hollered at, get coffee and everything. And then as we aged, and if you walked into Alice's Diner and you asked for a latte with, trying to think what kind of concoction you could come up with, you definitely
caramel macchiato.
Yeah, caramel macchiato.
Forget about it. You get it black or with milk.
Right. There would be no options. And then you fast forward and you see the Friends TV show and you see like the coffee house and then you see where we're at now. And there's not, a bunch more people behind the counter as you did see in Alice's Diner. And yet the multitude of options that have come forth is just incredible. It's exponential. And so you look at what we're seeing in education, and we're going to have exponential change because of this pandemic. And it's really going to be much more tailored to fit, much more along the lines of people ordering what meets their needs.
I love that analogy and that framing because I think it's one of the greatest challenges that we have within the industry of education. And that's sometimes a difficult thing for people to realize, that this education is a business. It's a huge business. It's an organization. It's an industry. And we work very hard to pare that down into individualism. And the entire organization of education is difficult to make those paradigm shifts, to turn that corner. That's why I get excited about being catapulted into the unknown. When we take a look at the Mel's Diner and Alice and Kiss My Grits, and I said your options were black or with milk. Sometimes your option of coffee at that time was cold or warm. That was about where it is. And I think in that wonderful phrasing that you just had is an opportunity for us in our generation. And as we recognize the differences of our experiences that were very unique and probably very picturesque to Americana, and I think most Americans have that sensibility of what a classroom looked like at a point in time, whether it was their own personal experiences or movies or the small screen. And what we have now is an opportunity to reframe our thinking, to make education not what it was for us, but to ensure that we're making it for what's best for the students of today. And that's the one thing that I think a lot of people struggle with because, as unfortunately, we've tightened our security measures, and we may have, even though we have these wonderful learning spaces, they may not be as inviting to our open community. So I'm not sure that our community of today, of 2020 and beyond, really knows the magic that's happening in our classroom. And I think as educators, it's our job to share that story. I'm fond of saying that good educators are creative, great educators steal. I appreciate the kind words about stealing ideas amongst each other, but all we're doing is reframing the opportunities for students of today rather than challenging the perception and mindset of what we experienced years ago. And I think that's really critical for us to be able to continue to make these changes in education.
So, Jeff, you're a parent. You know, you have your own kids, and you know, obviously that's a challenge in 2020. What advice, if you could give, you know, if you could, you know, reach out and talk to a parent right now, or to a child, to a student, what would be
Oh,
the
goodness.
advice you'd give them?
Yolanda and I say, if it's not on the day, I'll bet you it's every other day. We wish we knew what mistakes we're making today. We wish we knew, or we wish we had the wisdom of years ahead that we could incorporate it back in, because we're already providing that implicit bias that we have on what we think our children should do. You know, whether it was our experience traditionally, or what our traditional experience was, excuse me, what they may need. So both my wife and I were fairly traditional college track students. That myth really should be blown up today, and it should be more about the individual track, about jobs that probably don't even exist, careers that don't exist, lifestyles that are going to be perhaps more compartmentalized or perhaps more global. And so we talk often about, we wish we knew what mistakes we're making today so that we could fix them in the future, or however that would go. And I think the advice that I try to give everybody is to continue to believe in what you're doing in your households, create support for exploration, create an opportunity to know that the world is not the same as when we went to school as adults, and to allow that creative expression, and allow, if at all possible, whatever the resources are in your house, to be able to have a myriad of experiences that may be non-traditional to the experiences of the mom and the dad. And I think that is going to allow our babies of today to be able to continue to explore themselves, to continue to ask what if and why not, and allow us to be able to challenge, you know, what the future is going to hold.
Well, that's very good advice.
It's probably a mistake I'm making today that I'll regret in the future. I love being here today, and I am so honored to be invited to be on Over the Shoulder. I love the creativity and the innovation that Hemlock Public Schools are providing to your constituency, your community. I think it is refreshing to be able to continue to see the work in action of challenging what if and why not. As an ISD superintendent, new to Saginaw County, I wear a coat of many colors with mascots and supporting everybody, not only in Saginaw County, but throughout the region. However, today, I have my Hemlock blue on, I have my Husky blue, and today I am a proud Husky. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to be able to speak with your community.
Well, thank you.